Welcome to the NAPE YouTube site and to Hayley, owner of 1decision. Now this organisation offers resources to over 2,000 schools in the UK and beyond. Those manifold resources cover personal, social and health education, that is PSHE, relationships, sex and health education, which is of course RHSE. Relationships education has been compulsory for pupils in primary education since 2020. Also resources on the site covering the introduction of British values and protected characteristics. I make no apology that most of our time today will be Hayley explaining what those resources are and ultimately how much they cost. However, you can join up and view these resources yourself free. Hayley, welcome to the NAPE YouTube site. Thank you very much for coming to the site this afternoon and for telling us all about 1decision, which I'm very excited about.
And thank you for having me, Mike. It's really nice to be here.
Excellent. Now, one thing which interests me is the name, 1decision. How did you come to that decision about 1decision?
So my inspiration actually came from a film I watched back in the 90s, a Gwyneth Paltrow film called Sliding Doors. And within the film, the concept is that Gwyneth has to make a decision, and that causes the film to split into two, giving you two endings based on the decisions that she makes. And I thought this was a fantastic concept to help children understand a range of topics through film and video based, where they can explore social stories and then see the outcomes of different decisions, hence the name 1decision.
That's a very good answer and intriguing, and I do remember the film. So what sort of motivated you to set up this organisation in the first place?
So although I work now in primary education, my background's actually secondary education, where I ran approved alternative provision for many years, where we would work some really hard to reach individuals that were excluded or on the verge of exclusion from education. So across Herts, Beds and Bucks and many coming from the London area. And it was there through my work, I realised that it really was end of line for the children at that point. And if they didn't go back into education at that point, I was permanently excluded. And I just saw, working with the youngsters, that there was a real need for early education to stop them getting to that point. And I felt that PSHE really was the best part of the curriculum to enable us to work on those areas where children were lacking in skills or understanding or being able to manage their emotions, for instance, that brought them to provisions like mine.
Yeah, and very good too. So as a result of the work you've done and using your experience and know-how, you set up this organisation.
I did. It started at a very small idea, looking at safeguarding, how we could get children to watch videos that use the distance approach. So the videos that sit at the core of our resources are about other children. So when we're talking about these situations and topics, it doesn't feel personal for the children. So at that time, we get them making choices for other children, but at the same time, not only are we empowering them to make choices, but they're learning the skills, knowledge and vocabulary for themselves.
The core of our programme is built around award-winning animations, documentaries and a series of videos with alternative endings, which empower children to make choices for the characters whilst learning the knowledge, skills and vocabulary to support their own choice making now and in the future. Our platform also hosts a personal, social and emotional development platform for early years.
I think that we should be able to be looking at a way of ensuring that all children are prepared for secondary education and beyond. Once they hit secondary, life can change considerably, particularly as the hormone changes, friendship group changes, and so much. And I think that we are in a position to be able to support children where there are gaps through the PSHE education, where they may not be receiving the correct or most positive information at home or in the community or within their peer groups.
Yeah, that's very good to hear. Excellent. Now, clearly, you've got quite a few resources. Looking at your website as a member of the public, to your website. Could you share your website with us, please,
Yes,
and take us through it? Thank
So
you.
let me log in. So we have a number of different resources on offer, and not all of them are paid for. We have a lot of free resources. So I'm going to log in here. This is our main website. So as I log in as a teacher, every school can access a login, and as a part of our free login, you'll be able to access all of our assemblies. So as
Yeah.
a user, you'll see 9 areas, a couple we're working on at the moment at the bottom there. But our offering is this at the moment. So we have a full set of resources for early years, which support personal, social and emotional development.
Mhm.
Each of these resources are built around a set of animated characters. Um, should I share a topic with you,
If you
Mike?
could, that would really help us understand all about these animated characters you've mentioned.
So I know we're limited on a bit of time here, but I will just show one
Yes,
of
of
the
course.
40 topics that we have.
Yep.
So we have a number of different coloured characters. I'm going to step into Blue's topics, and within here, I'm going to click on Blue Learns to Share. Now, at the core of this section, we have short animations to get the children understanding about the topic. So
Yeah.
within this animation, we look at how Blue is learning to share amongst friends. Aside from the animation, we also have a read to me version, which highlights the vocabulary and supports children in their oracy and literacy.
Yeah.
Each of the topics also have an interactive game. One of the weak areas at early years is that assessment criteria, as children struggle to draw and write at this age group. So for each of the topics, we've also created an activity assessment, as we'd like to call it, to help early years practitioners find out where the gaps are or where the children have retained information. This
Yes.
speaks to the child's voice and encourages the children to decide based on what is on screen, whether it's sharing or not sharing in this instance. And they can go through a number of different real life scenarios. So we've moved on from animation to real life scenarios, and children can then review their answers with their teacher, and they can revisit that as many times as they like. These
Right.
games are
Sorry,
also,
sorry, if I can interrupt you for a
yeah, of
second. Can you
course,
go back to that screen for a minute?
of course I can.
If you can. Oops.
There we go.
There we go. Yes. Now, you've got a speaker on the left-hand side, so so what is written down there is spoken out. Is that the idea?
Yes.
So they don't
If
need
I,
to read it.
no, they don't. So it will say Harmony's taken all the teddies from Teddy Corner, so no one else can play with them. Is this sharing or not sharing?
Okay, and then on the right-hand side, you've got a green light and a red light. So really, for children who are just starting to learn to read, as long as they understand it's greenish is and red is not, that's really all they need to know. Is that right?
That's correct. That is correct.
Good, 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 good.
And obviously the teacher will be explaining as they go through.
Yeah,
Um,
and then the next question and so forth.
so there's about between 8 and 15 scenarios depending on which story they're in. And that some of them are sorting games where they have to make a choice, and others are just talking games where they'll have to discuss what they can see or not see, for instance, on the screen.
Okay, so once they've responded, there must be a record kept. Is the child told how well they've done? How does that work? Are they
So
given
they
a...
can review right at the end and go back over the questions and see which were the right and wrong answers, and
Yes.
then have a further discussion
Ah,
with the
right.
teachers. We don't record individual data, but we can use it on a one-to-one or group basis, depending what the need is.
That's where I think would be most useful in terms of giving children feedback. Thank you. That's very useful. Thank you for that.
You can also print the game. So for those schools that like to get the children up and about, they can actually print off the scenarios or put the scenarios up on the screen, and then the children can step into the sharing or not sharing
Yes.
sections that might be in a hula hoop, for instance. So there's lots of opportunities to be able to get them
Yeah.
moving about. Lastly, we also have a number of activity worksheets that we're adding, which can be printed off and can
Yes.
support fine motor skills based on the linking to the topic. And
Mhm.
then each topic also has another range of activities. I just zoom in there
Right.
for you, for
Yeah.
practitioners to build on the topic. So there'll be arts and crafts, they might be playground activities, they might be talking games, they might be musical games that will help children learn more and more about, in this instance, about sharing amongst themselves. It's very interesting, actually. This was one of the areas that we had feedback following COVID, that children were struggling more than ever to
Yes.
share. So that was something that was picked up by many, many settings and fed back to us. So it helped us kind of think about more ideas we could do for this particular topic.
Now that sheet says that sheet you just showed me said play games and sing songs about sharing. Do you have a list of do you have is there a suggested song list playlist or a suggested list of games that somewhere on the website?
For the songs, no. In the primary, we do have a lot of links to external websites that actually might, that's a really good idea and something maybe we could go back and consider, because we do recommend some brushing teeth songs and things like that, but I haven't got any on sharing, so maybe I should go and do a bit of an exploration, because that would certainly be a question that comes up in the future. So I will certainly take that on board and feed that back to the team.
Teachers being busy, you know, sometimes they need that those suggestions. Thank you. Fine. Okay.
Thank you. So that's a bit about early years. We also have mindfulness, yoga, a number of dilemma cards that can be used to get children, again, always using that distance approach to get them thinking about how they can support the characters. So in terms of primary, this is where we start to build our topics around those videos of alternative endings. So as I click into primary, we have 40 different topics that are split across two cycles. So there's a cycle for year 1, 2, and 3, and one for 4, 5, and 6. In each cycle, there are 9 topic areas for every year group. So an easy way of splitting this up across PSHE lessons or cross-curricular lessons is 3 colours blocks per term to give teachers a really easy way of working through the content.
Yes.
I'm just going to pick one to have a look at. So let's have a look at computer safety. It's one that with the constant rise in the use of technology is something that schools are looking at probably more than any other of the PSHE topics at the moment. Within each of the cycles, you'll have a number of essential documents such as your teacher notes, and just going back to where you mentioned before about that extra support, this is where we can highlight this in the primary. So a typical module which covers year 1, 2, and 3 would have a guide on how we deliver the topics. So unlike other resources, we provide topics like geography and history rather than lessons, because every school delivers different length lessons and we felt it would be best to give them more flexibility. Each of the overviews will provide a number of different links and resources. So if you want to build on our topics even more, we've even gone as far as to find the ISBN for books. And then that wider coverage where the topics may not always be as obvious. So teaching about consent and healthy friendships and permission seeking, so on. So there's lots of more support in the teachers' documents. We have a word bank. We worked with a big focus group of schools to pull out the words that might create barriers to children's learning. And then we created a bank with the correct definition of sentence and the opportunity to get the children to create their own sentences. And this can be used as a whole resource or just dip in and out. And so if we realised that our children didn't understand what declaration meant, we could just click to that page and dip in and out of that as the lesson was going. We also have student self-assessments, knowledge organisers, which can be shared with parents and carers, which shows the vocabulary they'll be learning each year, the links back to the RSHE and PSHE framework, and then some fantastic questions to help them highlight their deeper level of learning. So this could be something that parents and carers might want to ask at home as well. Below there, you'll find all of the content to deliver the resource. So we always start with a baseline around what children know about computer safety and always summarise what they've learnt once they have gone through all the topics. A typical topic looks like this. We have assessment built in to really save teachers time. So this would be a typical topic, and this would be suggested for year 2, looking at image sharing. And in the second cycle, we have another lesson around image sharing that looks at the pressure of being forced into sending a picture of ourselves. So this is the early introduction. Here you have a lesson or a topic, depending on how much time you have. And teachers can simply save time on planning and click through the lesson and use as much or as little of the content as they want. There is baseline and formative and summative assessments in every single topic, as well as the long-term assessments I mentioned previously. And again, using those traffic lights, using really simple assessment tools to find out what our children know. When it gets to the point to use the video, it will guide the teacher, and the children will watch the main part of the social story. As I get there, bear with me. And then once they've watched the main part, they will have a set of questions to look at. And we put this together with the PSHE Association to elicit the best responses, to get them really thinking about what's happening. Either way, they'll always watch both endings. We never tell children that they're bad choice makers. They'll either make the best choice, or the best choice for all, or not the best choice for all. So in this case, that's exactly what they'll be looking at. Sometimes it will be a safe choice, risky choice, healthy choice, unhealthy choice. And then they will look at their views around each of the endings and decide whether they made the most positive choice for the characters. And then they'll think about other endings that may also have happened. Following the video, they will also then consolidate their learning with another number of assessments. Only 95% of our videos have alternative endings. As you can imagine, we didn't use real life children and alternative endings for our puberty conception videos. And there's also a few documentaries in there where the dual endings didn't work. But this is the real USP for 1decision, and this is what children really enjoy. They really enjoy being involved in making decisions. I don't think we give children enough time to have the confidence to make decisions. We normally tell them what to do, and this really builds that confidence with them as well.
Yes, I mean, I can see that in a discussion group almost, or even with a class, going through some of these points that have been made on here. I think that could evoke a lot of discussion. Thank you.
So alongside the lesson, you'll have the video. I'm not sure if we'll have time to share that today, but always happy to share that through our taster pack. We have 6 topics that schools can use free of charge to get the feel for our products. There's another set of notes there to support teachers with this particular topic. Activity worksheets they can download, or they can put it up on the smart screen and take photographs of children's evidence, or they can buy workbooks to have an individual progress book for every child. And then for those schools, now this is something I hear very rarely, but for those schools that have more time, they can even access the extension activities, which are another lesson, sometimes 2 lessons, to build on those topics even more. So this one was for year 2, quite a simple one. And as they progress, the skills progress with the children, and the scenarios obviously get more serious as we get into key stage 2. Every module, so all 9 modules, start with a baseline, and this really is more for the teacher. If I was to click on the baseline, I can show you what that looks like. It's kind of like a short assessment. They are very different. Some are longer than others. Feelings and emotions, for instance, has so many feelings and emotions. There's quite a lot of questions and discussion, but this would be one for children at year 1. We have a safety quiz, and each of these questions are they come from the topics themselves. So we can start by finding out what children know in the beginning. This can be recorded by video, and then once they've had the topics, they'll revisit these questions in the summative. And then we can see that children are ready to go on to the next cycle. So as I through this, sorry.
Sorry. That makes sense. So it's a sort of before and after assessment to see how their awareness is increased over time.
So that's the long-term assessments, and then every topic has a short-term assessment based on the actual topic itself.
Move on.
So sometimes, so this one, for instance, this is a bit more information about understanding how the internet started, and thinking about the games that children are currently playing, getting a bit of feedback of what experience they've had so far. So they can talk about any unpleasant experiences they've had and so on. Do they speak to people online? And then we can create a simple set of computer rules before they actually go through the topics. And at the end of all the topics, they can come back and add to those computer rules of all of their new learning, and really show the new knowledge that they've gained throughout all of the topics.
Yes, and of course schools have their own policies to do with children and accessing the internet and so forth, which I suppose could be introduced to them, so that they're aware the school is watching out for them.
100%. I think what we've built is really the scaffolding for the subject area. So what started as PSHE we started then to layer in RSHE, protected characteristics, British values, and all of those other areas schools are now expected to evidence.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why that has to stop there. Schools can add on any additional information that they think is relevant to the children. For instance, if they were a school where there's a lot of lakes and rivers, they might want to expand on water safety and invite the R and an I in,
Yes,
for instance,
according to the
to build on
context of the
that.
school. Yeah.
Definitely. So it's just about kind of building on it, but we've created a really secure structure, but more importantly, that shows the gaps. So a lot of schools will just deliver PSHE because they know they have to, and it won't always necessarily be relevant to exactly what those children need at that time. So this allows you to dip in and out and to add and remove where you see.
I think it's very helpful. Now, this module we've looked at is 5 to 8 year olds. Is that right?
That one was, yes.
Yeah, that one was. So are we going on to the 9 to 11s now?
I can go on to the 8 to 11s, of course. So I'll go back into
8 to 11s, yeah.
the second cycle.
Yep.
So very similar. Relationships will move into growing and changing as we start to look at those puberty, sex education content. So sex education is the non-statutory element, but we find with the primary schools we work with, so we're working about 2,000 at the moment, that most of them will deliver sex education because they believe the importance, and as it is statutory from Key Stage 3, they feel that it's important to prepare their children for that next stage as early as possible, so that they're not having different information to their peers, for instance.
Yes, exactly.
So the fire safety will progress into first aid into the second cycle. As we all know, that's now statutory. But our world will move into the working world, but most of them will remain the same, and we'll have that skills progression moving up year by year, which is what we want to see in order to get children prepared by the end of year 6.
Yes. So you've got 9 modules there, so that fits in quite nicely in that age range, I suppose. Does it work out at 1 a term?
No, we tend to do 3 a term. So there's sections for each.
So I see, 3 years.
3 colours per term. So very similar to the first one. So if I was to give you an example of how that would work, for instance, this would be the second cycle. So we would start again with the baseline for the staying safe area in year 4. So we do the baseline and cycle safety, for instance. And then year 5, they'd look at peer pressure and adults' views. And then in year 6, they'd look at water safety and summative. So summarising that, and then that summative will then show you if there's any need to dip backwards and maybe revisit some of the extensions where children are still lacking in confidence in some areas. There's no reason to say that water safety couldn't be picked up and delivered in year 4, though. So there's some real flexibility for schools, or they could do it on a drop-down day where they have a water safety week, for instance. So as much as we give a guide, schools still have the flexibility to move those topics around.
Yes, depending when they're organising swimming, etc. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, well, that makes perfect sense. Well, that's very, very useful indeed.
To support schools in getting this right as well, we have a huge teacher zone. We know that a resource is only as useful as a teacher perceives it to be, and as the training that they had, particularly with managing discussions where it can be quite sensitive. So we have a lot of tutorial videos, supporting documents, mapping documents, curriculum mapping documents, parent carers documents. There's an absolute wealth of materials in there to reduce that time that teachers need to get this right. We have a series of webinars. They're free CPD for our customers and non-customers. We have some fantastic speakers that join us for those. We have an interactive magazine, again, that is free to customers, that really looks at those key areas for personal development in schools. And we have some external experts that join us every term to bring in their thoughts about how schools can do this even better. We support, we do awareness days and so on. There's a number of things: classroom materials, posters, extra support, anxiety packs to send back to parents and carers. So there really, really is a lot of support there in all areas.
Yes, well, that's good. So there's a fair amount of CPD for teachers in the form of webinars and tutorial videos. Yeah.
We also have a training portal for those schools that really want to look at that training. And the way that works.
My next question. Yeah, good.
is we have 9 modules, so 6 for teaching staff, and then an additional 3 for subject leaders. This really supports schools in getting that consistency, making sure that all teachers are working in line with policy, that they've all had equal training, they all getting the best out of the resources and monitoring and evaluating to the best of their abilities. We support schools in preparing for inspection. We have ongoing audits to help recognise any gaps or any more need for training. There's curriculum mapping tools and all sorts. So this is a really
planning. That's useful. Yeah.
Surveys to parents, carers, and so on. So some fantastic content in there, and it's really cost effective, particularly if it's brought in line with the resources. We're trying to bring those costs down. We know that schools don't have a huge budget for this.
No, less and less year by year, or so it seems. So tell me, what are the costs related to all this wonderful material that has been provided on this website? What's the subscription basis?
So in terms of subscription, schools can buy into as much or as little of the content as they want, and they are free to go onto the website and build their own quote to kind of see the kind of pricing that we have. Early years is a static price of £185 currently, and the primary starts at 185 and goes up to about 750, I believe. Sorry, I'm not on the sales team, but that's the maximum, and that's for a large school with kind of 3 or 4 form entry and beyond. We also have a transition quiz, and the transition quiz in the training portal, if brought alongside the resources, will receive a 50% reduction in cost. The transition quiz is something that I didn't mention before, but this is real hard data for transition in terms of testing your children at the end of year 5 or beginning of year 6, and being able to test them against 12 areas of personal development, and being able to see the gaps, so you can refocus your PSHE to enable you to plug any gaps before they leave your setting at the end of year 6, and then you can retest your children at the end of year 6 to be able to showcase to stakeholders such as governors or maybe even Ofsted or ISI how you're recognising the gaps for your children. You can analyse the data through groups, through pupil premium children, SEN children, or just cohort class A by class B, for instance.
That sounds very useful. Well, you know, whether a secondary school that's receiving the year six children are interested in that, one doesn't know. It depends on the school,
We've
I
actually
suppose.
got a lot of secondary schools, Mike, now that are having it as a starting piece of software. I wasn't going to mention because obviously this is a primary
Yeah,
conversation, but secondary schools, particularly some of them can often have 4 different feeder schools, are
yeah,
really keen to
exactly.
know what knowledge their children are coming up with
Yes.
um, to inform their PSHE going forward. So that's been really interesting to
Yeah.
see, and it's not something we built the software for,
Mm.
but working really, really well. So the transition quiz is currently £600 for the software, but it's 50% reduction. But it can also be as a part
Okay.
of a wider service. So we've actually got a service that happened at the minute, which we can offer to schools where we can audit their provision for personal development and audit their children through the transitional quiz and give them a full report on recommendations based on
Yes.
our expert knowledge.
Yes.
Training portal is £600 for schools, and that covers everyone, all your SLT and your teaching staff. But again, it's brought in with the resources. We do offer 50% reduction currently at the
Yeah.
moment,
Yeah.
and it can be done in their time rather than having to try and get everyone together. Schools
Mm.
can log in and do that in their PP time.
Yes. And you've got assembly packs, you've got teacher area, which we've sort of discussed. The nurture
Yes.
group, it's interesting.
Yes, so Nurture Group is free to primary customers at the moment. It was born just before COVID, but actually we adjusted it to cover the 5 R's to recovery.
Yeah.
And we're finding it's being used more and more now because the thresholds for CAMS are so high,
Mm.
uh, and children that would have been able to get support through the CAM service 2 years ago are no longer reaching the threshold, and schools are looking for resources to support those children emotionally. So Nurture Group is 6 30-minute sessions for each age group, and it supports teachers in supporting their children to find out how they can help them thrive in the educational setting through a number of sessions looking at emotions, managing emotions, and so on. So that is free for primary, and assembly is free to everybody at the moment. So you can have that completely free of charge by just going to our website and requesting access. I
Yeah.
can't talk to you too much about Schools TV and our PSHE shop at the moment because we're just working on those, but I can give you a bit of an insight. Schools TV is going to be parent carer support at home. It's going to be a wealth of knowledge and information to support parents and carers looking at issues within the home, where they might be needing support and where local areas may not be able to provide that support. This portal is going to be able to provide them with a
So
number of
basically, community support. Yeah. That's very
100%.
good.
And the PSHE shop, we're collaborating with a number of different resource providers to just be able to share a number of different new resources to complement PSHE even more, so that they're coming
Yes.
out soon. I suppose the only other thing in terms of reassurance for any teachers that are interested in finding out more is just to know that all of our resources, all our primary resources, have been kite marked by the PSHE Association and held the kite mark for over 10 years. So they can find out more about that in terms of us just being an organisation that's made resources. We've really put them through the mill to make sure that they are relevant, that they are approaching these subjects safely and in line with the PSHE kind of 10 top tips as such.
That's what I like to hear. 10 top tips. Very good.
I can't remember exactly what they call it, but there's 10 PSHE expectations that were
Yes.
devised some time ago. So everything that goes through the kite mark is checked against those 10 points. So yeah, just to give any watchers, any viewers reassurance that we've really put our resources through the mill and worked with some of the best in the business to
Yes.
bring
Well,
these
it
together.
certainly looks like it to me. Hayley, thank you very much indeed for this sort of whistle-stop tour through your website and to explain to us all about One Decision. And it's a decision that certainly primary schools need to make, you know, give some direction to their PSHE program. So thank you very much indeed for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. It's been a pleasure.
Bye for now.
Thank you.